Guillermo del Toro is one of Mexico's most prolific directors, and his first feature-length film is indicative of his future work. Cronos is a film all about the horrors of immortality. Federico Lupi stars as Jesus Cris, an antiques dealer who stumbles his way into vampirism after he discovers a mythical object in his shop. These days, the concept of immortality actually being a bad thing is all but cliché. However, in 1993, it was still a relatively fresh concept, and Guillermo del Toro is such a capable film director that the boilerplate nature of the film doesn't get in the way of the final product. The main thing that sets Cronos apart from any other vampire movie is just how pathetic they decide to make the vampires. What sets Cronos apart from most other vampire films is just how pathetic they decide to make the vampires and anyone who wants to become a vampire. There have been vampire subversions like this before, but even the absolute misery of Near Dark feels the need to give vampires some amount of power. In Cronos, the only extraordinary abilities that vampires have is the inability to die. They're compared to multiple bugs throughout the movie, including mosquitoes and cockroaches. And the need for the vampires to drink blood isn't treated as some kind of badass moment where they just decide to kill people. It's treated more like an addiction, where the vampire will just lick it up off the bathroom floor just because they need it that badly. However, Cronos makes one thing clear. The only thing worse than someone who has become immortal is someone who wants to be immortal. In this case, it's Dieter de la Guardia, played by Claudio Brooks. Dieter de la Guardia is an old, powerful, rich businessman, in many ways the exact opposite of the protagonist, Jesus Cris, who is a humble, kind, heavily religious small business owner. Dieter is described by his nephew, played by Ron Perlman, as an old man who's only good for pissing and shitting himself. In fact, he finds it laughable that Dieter wants to live even longer than he already has. While we're on the subject, we may as well talk about the only two actors that I can safely judge. Cronos is a Spanish-language movie, meaning I can't judge at most of the actors. The only two actors who regularly speak English are Claudio Brooks and Ron Perlman. Both of these actors do perfectly serviceable jobs. But there will always be a soft spot in my heart for Ron Perlman, who never fails to knock it out of the park. What truly sets Cronos apart from most other horror movies is its conviction. It's very clearly a horror movie with a message. There is an overabundance of horror films today that people will immediately forget as soon as they leave the theater. Cronos is meant to stick with you. You're supposed to understand that it has a message, and even if you don't understand or agree with it, you're supposed to think about it. This isn't a film that's over-reliant on jump scares and doesn't even have a scary monster to chase around the protagonist. It's a slow, inherently scary tale, with some imagery that should haunt you for a few days. Cronos is, for lack of a better term, a classier kind of horror film. You might have to think on it a few days after watching it, but if you can get past the need for subtitles, it's a solid recommendation.